Okay, it's Moscow's Public Works and Finance Committee meeting for Monday, January 11th, 2021. And I'll jump in here for the first little bit until we take care of item number 1, at which time we'll turn it over to the new chairman. So the first thing we do today is select our chair and vice chair for the next year for Public Works and Finance. So, who wants? Maureen, do you want?
My turn.
And?
Roger?
If Maureen wants to be chair, I'm happy to vice too.
Okay, that works for me.
Great.
I would like to recommend to just make one change in what Art said, and that is that it makes more sense that the person who's chairing it to be the person sitting in city council. And so I will in subsequent meetings be there, but it does make more sense to have you present, the chair to be present. Maybe it doesn't, but I was just thinking that that's what we were going to do. But either way works for me.
Okay, well, we'll make you the chair, and then you can show up for future meetings, and I'll just run this one through because
Okay.
I'm here.
It is possible, but it's not ideal.
That's what I thought. And so we're just sitting here. Let's start it out, and then I will be there, and Art could be on the internet, Zoom instead.
Yep, so Ann's right, it is a hassle. So,
Listen really close for the knock, is what I learned.
yeah, I don't think you can hear it over the mics too well. But anyway, item number 2 is approval of the December 14th, 2020 Public Works and Finance Committee meetings minutes. I was there, and the minutes looked good to me. Even though I wasn't sitting on the committee, they look good.
Good to meet you.
Read.
Okay, those are approved. Next up is Sarah Banks with our disbursement report for December of 2020. Sarah, go for it.
Hi, how is everyone? Good. So I'm looking at the accounts payable report for month ending December 31st, 2020, and our total expenditures were $2,838,002.40. Our largest expenditure, as usual, is payroll. That came in at $1,583,286. We do have a few other major expenditures that I want to go ahead and point out. We had our Well 10 Phase 2 contractor payment number 7, which was $114,866.87. We made our first DEQ loan payment, and this was, I believe, for our interest, and that was $134,111.04. We purchased 2 new vehicles, a Ford Explorer for $36,979.34, and then a Ford F-350 for $27,616. We had some maintenance and fresh paint on the lower portion and belly of the new reservoir that cost $55,880, and then we had some construction as part of our sidewalk program for $45,097.92. Other than that, everything was pretty straightforward for the month of December.
One question, Sarah. What does
Sure.
what does ACH stand for?
That is an electronic payment.
So for credit card services or?
No, an ACH would be basically the same way as if you were to write a check. It's an automatic payment, but it's just from bank to bank versus using a credit card, a physical check, or a debit card or anything like that. So it goes directly out. It's just a straight payment from fund to fund without having to write a physical check.
Okay, got it.
And is it typical for work as part of the sidewalk program to happen until late year?
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
Is it typical? Yeah, is it typical for work for the sidewalk program to happen so late in the year?
It just depends on what they're doing. I mean, typically sidewalk work and stuff is usually done during the construction season. I'm not sure what this work was for. I'd probably refer to either Bill or Tyler on that, but I know it can happen periodically depending on what it is.
And this year was a little bit unique. We did bid the project in the fall, hoping to get better pricing, which we were able to get. Typically, this is bid in spring to early summertime period, but we did not end up bidding this project till the fall.
And just to add on what Bill said there, with our asphalt in in our standards, we have to have a certain temperature, and rising concrete's a little more forgiving. And so there are steps you can take to pour concrete in colder temperature that you can't do with asphalt. So for things like sidewalk, there is a little bit more ability to do it at different points in the year.
Great, thank you both.
Okay, so shall we approve and eventually sign the disbursement report?
Yes. Okay, and I do want to note that I don't believe at the time that the disbursement report was created, since it was just approved, we didn't have the correct names on there. If that is the case, I'll have those reran and brought up so that you can sign them without having to cross the name out and put yours in.
Good stuff. So shall we call
Can we
them
do it electronically, Sarah?
You can, if you have a way of physically electronically doing it. I can have these signed for anybody in person and then have them sent over to you to add your signature to.
So do we ever use Hello Sign, which is something we use a lot on documents, and people can just, you send it out, they sign, they put their electronic signature on it. And if there's a need for us to do that a lot, then that makes sense that we would do it. There's actually programs to do electronic signatures for people, and so we should probably do that if it gets done a lot. Okay.
I'm going to refer to Jesse on that, since he handles our electronic signatures and stuff, and Mia legally on what we can do, and then certainly whatever works for everyone, I'm happy to have happen.
Okay, but in the meantime, I'll sign mine whenever this week.
Okay, good. So we'll declare the disbursement report approved. Next up, also Sarah Banks, is the first quarter financial report, October 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020.
Yes, and so I'm going to kind of go through this like I normally do, but if you have additional questions, feel free to ask, because I'm not actually sure all of you have been through the quarterlies with me or not. But anyway, this is first quarter, and typically at first quarter, you like to see the percent to budget. It's going to be somewhere around 25%. Sometimes things are lower or higher depending on exactly what's going on with them. If there's some anomalies, I'll be sure to point those out for you. If you go down the line, you look at general fund, it's sitting right at about 26%, street 20, rec and culture 15, playfields at about 17%, 19, 12, 22, transit center 15, water about 24, sewer 26, sanitation 20, fleet management is sitting at 8%. And that to me looks like it's because there's not been a lot of their operational costs yet. We wait usually in January for a lot of the purchases and things we do within fleet. We wait until after we receive our revenues. And at this point, we've only received our state liquor funds. We have not received the rest of them. So by second quarter, fleet will definitely catch up. Information systems sitting right at about 24%. And then with all of our capital and construction funds, those always sit really low. Part of that is because construction season is throughout the summer, so you're going to see a heavier bite on that for fourth quarter. Our fourth quarter I'll present to you in March, I believe. But a lot of times those also sit a little bit lower because we have fund balances that sit within the funds and they're part of what's budgeted, so it can kind of skew the figures a little bit. But for the most part, everything's on point. If you see some 100%, and those are usually always in the transfer lines at this point, those are because those were one-time transfers that we do at the beginning of the fiscal year. Other than that, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I think everything looks and sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, we'll call that approved as well. Thank you, Sarah.
All right, great. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Next up is the professional service pre-qualification process master agreements for approval by Scott Bontrager. Scott, go for it.
Good afternoon. So this process, the city often needs to hire design professionals for our design and construction projects that exceed our current staff load or experience levels or technical expertise. So Historically, for us, this meant basically publishing a request for qualification every time we had a project that came out, going through and reviewing all the SOQs, and then the process of an establishment agreement each time. To increase efficiency on this, 3 years ago, we decided to establish a pre-approved list for qualified professionals. And doing this, we are following Idaho State Code 67-2320-2H, which states the procedure for doing that and allowing us to have that pre-qualified roster of professionals. In 2019, we established a resolution for this that was approved by City Council. It was November of 2019 to help formalize the city's process for this. And essentially, this last fall, that first list, the first 3 years was expiring. So we had to put it back out for another set of SOQs to go through the process again. We sent this out on September 26th with submittals to come back to us on October 23rd. We received 18 engineering firms that were interested in being part of our city roster. We reviewed all of them met the minimum qualifications. So staff is recommending approval of the new professional services roster and allowing the city to enter into the master service agreements with the respondents to this round of qualifications.
What do you think? Ann?
I think it was a nice step when this was done a couple years ago in terms of what you mentioned, streamlining efficiency. Can you remind me, is it once a year that contractors are able to apply? It's annually, correct?
Yeah, so we'll reestablish a whole new list every 3 years, and then every year we'll also allow additional people to come in during that 3-year period.
And is 18 the largest number that we've had since we started doing it?
Yeah, last time I think we ended up with about 13.
I like seeing that everyone who applied was qualified.
Yeah. We've received a lot more firms, all the way over towards Seattle, Boise. A lot came from Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, so we're seeing more that are interested in working with us.
I think it looks great, and I'd say consent.
I would say it looks good myself, not having been involved with it before. And it makes sense to have this pre-approved. And I think it's great that we're getting more people to apply. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's working well and no reason to rock the boat. We should go ahead and approve it. I think consent agenda is good for this one.
Certainly.
So good stuff. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Next is the Idaho Commission on the Arts, Arts Education Annual Project Grant Application with Megan Cherry. Megan, you're on.
Cool. Nice to see everybody. Thank you for making time for me on the agenda today. The Arts Department is looking at 2 grant applications. I'll deal with each one individually. We would like to apply for the Arts Education Annual Project. This is a grant program that is administered by the Idaho Commission on the Arts. It's a grant program we have not applied for in the past, so this will be our first run at it. I've done a bunch of research on it though, and I feel like we have a really good chance. And so we would be applying for $3,000 in funding, and that funding would support our Activities Toolbox program. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with this is a art supply and curriculum toolkit that we've made available to community members in partnership with the Pritchard Art Gallery. And some changes over at the Pritchard have really necessitated us reaching out for funding through this grant program. So the toolboxes are a really good fit for this grant program because they're fun and they're just darn cute, but they also are rigorous in that it's all standards aligned curriculum. So it's a pretty neat project, and we're hoping to see that continue to flourish over the years. So that's our first grant application that we'd like to consider. Happy to answer any questions on that one.
I have a couple of questions. One is, are the toolboxes designated by ages? So you have different ones for little people, and are they all school age people?
They are, yeah, great question. So the lessons, the toolboxes come with a guidebook that is general information about the topic. So for example, the most recent one was puppets. And we had a guidebook that was sort of general information about puppets and storytelling and character development that was meant for all ages. And then there are lessons associated with each age group. And then, so we've got, I may have to cheat for 1 minute. We've got lessons, pardon me, sorry, I'm grabbing a set right now. The lessons are for ages 5 to 7, and then a second set for 8 to 12, and then a third set for 13 and up. And we're delivering these as physical toolboxes, but then we also have the guidebook and lesson materials posted online. So if somebody's got their own supplies, they can go and download a PDF and work along with the lessons at home. And we've had people of all ages do this. We've had people far older than 5 to 7 or 13 years old do these lessons. They're really, really fun. So
somebody in their 40s just did them. And so I guess that those that are like school age and below, do you distribute those at school, or do people have to sign up to get them, or?
yeah, so at this point we've worked with 2 different delivery methods. The first edition of the toolbox was an Art Outside toolbox, and it was offered through the Motor Inn Market, and Amanda and her staff were really wonderful in supporting this effort with us this last summer. It was a really nice confluence. So people could go into the Motor Inn Market and select a toolbox, and they come to the person who's buying it free of charge. So that was the first one. And then the second one we delivered through the submittable program that we've started to use for all of our online registrations and submissions. The added benefit of that is that we can also, while we've got people there, we're able to encourage them to sign up for our artist directories and to help them get involved in some of the other things that we're offering. And then, so there's always an online registration and an in-person pickup. So in the second edition of the toolbox, the in-person pickup is at the Pritchard. So we imagine this as being something that in the future, if we have an event or if there's something happening in town that we want to encourage attendance, when we're back to being able to encourage attendance at events, that we could use those toolboxes as a way to sort of develop audiences, that they sign up for something online and then they come and pick it up at the event. So
One other question, and that is it, my assumption is, do you do most of the writing on this, or does it go through a grant writer?
The writing of the grant. On these smaller grants, I do the writing for the ones that go through the ICA, but I work with Elisa to make sure that we've got all of the correct reporting and paperwork done through the city, and then we track that information through finance. As together. So, but yeah, I do write the narrative and do all of the entry of it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Lisa, I think it's a great idea.
Thanks, Maureen.
Thank you for asking that question too. That was one of mine as well. But I kind of figured maybe on a smaller grant that might be the case. But yeah, I love them activities. They're so lovely. And especially I think a really good fit for the ongoing challenges that we're in. So I think this is great. And also kudos for seeking out new grant funding. I think identifying this opportunity as something we can apply for this year and in the future is a really nice approach to make that possible. So excellent job.
Thank you. I put this on my calendar for next fall, next late fall, winter to sort of look at this one annually. to see what we have in our programming that would fit. So
That's great.
Art, if I may.
Yeah, Gary.
I just wanted to make the comment too, these two grants, as you can see, they're not real huge, $3,000 apiece, the ones that both you'll look at today. And we will likely look at streamlining the process a little bit. These are grants that regularly come back up. They're reimbursements, that sort of thing. So we'll probably be presenting something that will allow us to apply for these without having to come back to council, because they're small enough, they become routine and they're offered year after year.
So, sound good, colleagues?
Sounds good. Sounds great. I say consent agenda, unless we want everybody to know about them, but they can read them on notes.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so on consent, I think.
Thank you.
Yep. And Megan, you again for the second
Okay.
grant, the public
Next.
program in the arts.
Thank you. Yeah, next up, we have, this grant program is, there's a sort of progression of grant programs through the ICA. You'll be familiar, those of you who've been on council for a few years will remember probably the entry track program that the Arts Department applied for and was part of for several years, I think at least 5 years. And the way that program is intended to work is that eventually, after an organization has shown good stewardship of the funds, and that their organization is healthy and sustainable, that they are shifted to what PPA or public programs in the arts. And it becomes more of an annual grant that requires less in terms of application. You can see in your packet materials that the application for this one is really very simple. And then the reporting similarly is pretty simple. And so we were really grateful to be transferred to that more automated grant funding in last year. So this is this public programs in the arts amount. We are anticipating that it would be similar to what we received this year. So we're looking at $5,700 in grant funding through PPA. Does anybody have questions on this one?
Well, it looks good to me. I'd say press on, go forward and do it, and recommend approval to the council on the consent agenda.
I agree.
Agree.
Works? Okay. Thank you, Megan.
And Megan, just to finish on that is, I appreciate, kind of in a follow-up to what Ann said, is the idea of going out and searching for grants in order to expand our outreach of our arts program. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, that brings us round to the end of our first Public Works Finance Committee meeting of the year. So you guys okay with adjourning?
Yes.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Bye. Have a nice day, everyone. What's left of it.